Hello there, this is Mr. B, and the purpose of this video is really twofold. One is if you've already done this sheet right here, then I just want you to check it. I'm going to go over the answers, and I'm going to talk about some of the common errors that students make. And if you haven't done it already, well, this could serve as a tutorial or practice for doing this type of thing. We are reading a situation and we're writing an equation. In some instances, it gives us an equation, like right here. Otherwise, we'll be writing an equation. We're going to identify the independent and the dependent variables. We'll create a table, and then we'll have our graph. We're going to create a graph as well. That's pretty tough to do that. So let's take a look at this one. This is our first example right here. So Marcus, he reads 30 minutes each night. He wants to determine the total number of minutes that he's going to read over the course of a month. This is the equation. So notice they give us the equation, so we don't have to write the equation. And then it defines the variables. Define the variables just means it's going to tell us the letter, and it's going to tell us what the letter represents. So the letter T represents the total number of minutes, and that's going to be one of our variables, the total number of minutes. Now, when we say variable, we are talking about the letters in an expression or an equation, but we're also talking about the words, what they represent. So the variables in this situation are the total number of minutes and also the letter D, which represents the number of days. Those are the two variables, total number of minutes, number of days. Which one is independent, which is dependent? Well, the amount of minutes that he is going to read depends on how many days he reads. So this is our dependent variable, is the number of minutes. So I'm going to type that here. And the total number of minutes depends on the number of days. Now we're going to put those in our table right here. The first column, the right-hand or left-hand column, is going to be the independent variable. And the dependent variable goes in the right column. All right, now we're ready to fill out our table. And so we could just start making up numbers for the numbers of days. So it says here, it wants us to, now keep reading the directions right here, which a lot of you kind of skip over this part, but we want to just know they want us to create a table for the first 7 days. So we're just going to be 1. And now that we have our days right here, so in 1 day, how many minutes does he read? 30 minutes. 2 days will be 60. And I'm sure you can all kind of see a pattern right here as we move along. And there we have our table set out right here. We know we could get these numbers by just looking at our equation. We know that the total number of minutes, T, was equal 30 times the number of days. So we just multiply 1 times 30, 2 times 30, 3 times 30, etc. Let's make our graph. This is often a very difficult part right here. This is difficult to do because there's a lot of just numbering is difficult. What labels go here? So don't forget labels. A lot of students forget labels. We need to make sure we're writing down the words that go with these. The independent variable goes along the x-axis. That's this right here. Independent variable goes here. So we're going to title this here. Dependent variable goes here. Say total minutes right there. And then we can start to number these. So I'm going to skip a line here. Now this, remember, this is our y-axis, x-axis. This is 0 on the x-axis, and it's also 0 on the y-axis. So 0, 0. It's 0 on both number lines right here. So I'm going to go along the x-axis. We're only counting up to 7. We can go past 7. That's fine. But I'm going to go ahead and skip a line and just say this is going to be number 1. So skip, and then that's number 1. Then we skip, and then that's going to be number 2, so that we're numbering them evenly as we go. I don't put 1 here and then start to skip and say that's 2. I can't do that. I have to begin by skipping 1, skip 2, skip 3, and so on. Now, if you numbered yours and you started 1 here and then went 2 here and 3 and 4 and 5, that's fine, as long as it was consistent, that you did it the same way across. Now, if we're going up right here, what should we count by? I would warn us, we don't always just count by whatever you see in the table. Don't just count by 30s and or whatever is in the table. Count by something that makes sense. So I think I want to count by 10s, and this is going to be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. and then 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And then that's going to be good enough. If we don't get to these, if it's not big enough to get, that's okay. That's all right. We don't have to get every single thing in the table. So this is a good, easy way to number these. Let's go ahead and start putting our points in. We have 130. So this is point. That's point 130. So this would be point 260. Obviously, you could see how we're setting up our coordinates right here. We have the x value and the y value. So let's come down here and start putting them in. Here's 1 and 30, 10, 20, 30, 2 and 60, 3, 90. Notice I just kind of go over to the next number, and then I go up 1, 2, 3, and then I know that's going to be where I need it to go. So let's stop right there and draw our line. These are our points, but we need the line. So, okay, we need to draw the arrow. Always have the arrow. The arrow means it keeps going, even though our graph is small enough to finish it right there. Okay, so this is it right here. That's our graph, our table. Our equation is already up there, so we don't need to write an equation. That's perfect. Let's go on to the next one. Here we have Kira. She's designing websites. She creates 3 websites each week. Okay, we want an equation, so we're going to need that. We're also going to have to determine the independent and dependent variables and create a table here for the first 5 weeks. Okay, so let's think about what depends on what. We have the number of weeks is going to be one variable, and how many websites she makes is another variable, which depends on which. I like to start with the dependent variable because it's easy to think of this variable depends on something else. So in our case right here, the dependent variable is going to be the number of websites she makes, because the number of websites she makes depends on how many weeks she works. So here we have number of websites is dependent upon the independent variable of weeks. So we're going to put this in here, and then let's assign a variable to it. Let's do, I don't know, W. We'll say W for this. They both begin with W, websites, weeks. So we're going to have to come up with a different, you can't use the same one. It has to be a different website, different variable. So let's use S for sites. How about that? All right, now let's start filling in our table. We have the number of weeks. It says for the first 5 weeks. So there we have our weeks. Now she creates 3 each week. So it's just going to be 1 times 3 and then 2 times 3. Since it's 3 each week, that'll be 6. What is our equation? What are we doing to the W numbers to get the S numbers as our answer? This means since the S, the dependent is our answer, it's going to equal S. What are we doing to this number to get these numbers? As you can see, we're multiplying by 3 each time. 1 times 3. Okay, etc., etc. So we're multiplying each of these by 3. So we're going to say 3 times W, which is our number of weeks. 3 times the number of weeks will tell us or equals the number of websites. That's our equation right there. Let's look at example number 3. All right, here Priya is streaming some movies, and she is being charged for those movies. She has to pay for them, of course. Here's the charges. It's $5 fee one time. You pay $5 one time for the whole month, and then you also have to pay $1.50 per movie. So we need to do independent and dependent, create an equation table, and the table will show us between 4 and 10 movies a month. So what are the 2 things that that are changing here? What are the 2 variables in words, not letters, but what are the words? What are the things that she can determine, or she can make a decision on her own? Well, she can decide how many movies she's going to watch. We don't know that. That's a variable. That'll change from month to month to month, right? So the number of movies, and then there's also the total fee. How much is she going to pay for all of this? These are the 2 variables. Now, which one depends on the other? So we're going to say the dependent variable is going to be the total cost for the month, right? The total cost will depend on how many movies she watches. Sometimes we're mistaken, and we might think, oh, one of the variables is the cost per movie. Well, no, that's not a variable. The cost per movie is $1.50. We know the cost per movie. That never changes. Or they may say, well, one variable is the monthly fee. No, that's not a variable because it doesn't change. The $5 always is the monthly fee. These are things that don't change. They're not variables, okay? What's variables are the things we can decide on. Priya decides how many movies she's going to watch, and that will affect the total cost. Let's go ahead and put these in place here. Independent variable goes first. I'm just going to assign it an M for a variable. You can assign it different. You can put X, or anything. It's okay. And then total cost, just say T for total. You could put C. It doesn't matter. So our number of movies, it says 4 through 10 movies. Now, how much will her total cost for the month be if she watches 4 movies? Well, it's $1.50 per movie, and she pays $5. So we're going to have to multiply 4 times $1.50 plus, I'm just going to put 1.5, okay, because that's $1.50, but when we're doing math, we don't need the 0, that's extra. So plus the $5. So what is 4 times $1.50 plus 5? That's going to be $11. So our cost is $11. What if she does 5 movies? Well, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to multiply by $1.50, add the $5, and we get $12.50. Each time we have a number of movies, we're going to multiply by the per movie cost and then add that $5 to find our total monthly cost. Again, remember, we don't really know how many movies she's going to stream. This is just what if. What if she does watch 6? Well, let's figure out the cost. What if she watches 7? Let's figure out the cost. All right, so here's the rest of the table. That's the rest of the numbers on the table. Our equation is going to look right here. It's going to be this. We're going to put the M instead of the number. Here we go. It's 1.5. Here's our equation right there. It's 1.5. That's our per movie cost times how many movies, and then we're going to add the $5. That'll be our total cost. All right, so these are our 3 examples right here, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the answers to our exercises really quickly. Right, in our exercises, here's the first one right here. Here are the answers. You can see it gives us these 2 variables right here. It's the 2 things that can change are the number of the packs of pencils that she buys and also the number of pencils. So the total number of pencils depends on how many packs she buys. So it says to make a table for 3 to 7 packages, and we did that. Each package has 12 pencils, so we are multiplying 12 times P, which is our packs. 12 times the number of packs will tell us how many pencils. So it looks like this. Let me just make a couple mentions about the graph right here. So when you're doing the graph, make sure you are labeling it right here. Make sure your numbering is consistent. If you're skipping a line here, if you want to skip between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, then you must also skip before 0. That's a number right here, 0. So it's 0, 1, 2. And then I numbered my y-axis this way. I counted by tens, only marking down the 50s, then 100 and 150 would be up here. You can number it differently. Don't number it by 36s or 12s. Don't say 12, 24, 36. So avoid trying to find, just whatever numbers I see here, I'm going to stick them here. I see a few people numbering with 36 first, and they stick it right here. All right, that's not where, first of all, if you were going to number that way, that's not where 36 would go, because there are other packs. There's 2 packs and 1 pack that we did not show on our table. So we would not skip to 36. That means if we zoom in here, if we said this was 36 right here, we said this first line was 36, that means the second line has to be another 36. That would be 72, and then another 36. So 108. So we're not counting by 36s. So be careful. I saw some mistakes with that. That's not a correct way to count here. You could count by 12s, say 12, 24, and then there's 36 and 48 and 60. However, 12s are just not a very natural number to count by. We normally count by 10s or 20s or 2s or 5s, not 12s. So avoid just trying to fit these numbers in the y-axis. And then we'll just try and figure out, well, 3 and 36. I don't know, it's probably somewhere around there. 4 and 48, just a little bit below the 50. So I kind of like do your best in fitting those in. All right, let's take a look at the next one right here. Charlotte, she reads 4 books each week. Charlotte reads 4 books each week. We have the number of weeks being independent. And then the number of books depends on how many weeks. So we have our independent and dependent. Our graph will look like this. Similar numbering along the x-axis, and I counted by 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and that made it pretty easy to pick and put our points on here. So remember, each pair here is a point. 1, 4. That means 1 week, 4 books. 2 weeks, 8 books. That's what we see in our table right here. All right, let's move on to the others. Here are the rest of our answers for the last 3 right here. You can take a look at these. Independent and dependent are listed here. Each one of these are being multiplied by 3. Here's the second one. We have Joshua, 25 minutes a day reading. And so you can see in our table, like we're multiplying each one of these by 25. If he has 8 days, by the way, I started with 8 because it says here to make a table over 7 days. So 8, 9, 10 through 14. You can see that each day he reads 25 minutes, so 8 would have to be multiplied by 25 to get the number of minutes in here. And we would just simply do the same thing, 9 times 25 to find our answer for the number of minutes there. 10 times 25, 11 times 25, and so forth, all the way down. Our equation then would be 25 times the number of days equals the number of minutes. And our last one down here, the packages of hot dogs, 8 buns in a package. So we need to make a table from 3 to 8 packages right here, and which we did. We multiplied each of these by 8. Our equation says we're multiplying by 8 the number of packs, not B. So you have to make sure you're getting the variables correct on here. Okay, guys, that's it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.